Hi there, you're watching Market Cafe on ET Now with me, Shriyanti Singh, and over the next 1 hour, me and Priyanka Uppal will be covering everything and telling you about the US markets, about the oil markets, and telling you which stocks also you should be keeping on your radar bright and early this morning. But first things first, let's take a look at the US markets and see what the roundup is coming in there as well. When you take a look at futures, though, you're not looking at much of a move coming in, just a tad bit of a slip is what you're looking at across the futures. But when you take a look at the session on Monday, you're looking at safe haven US Treasury yields declining, and as a result, you do have the Dow that slumped more than 250 points. That's the kind of move that you saw for the Dow coming in. So 0.6% decline coming in there. S&P 500 as well as the Nasdaq Composite are the ones that fell about 0.3% each. So strong cues are being awaited at this point, because when you take a look at what the backdrop is at this point, you do have the Fed meet as well as elections, and the markets are still waiting for the cues coming in for those. When you take a look at the latest poll coming in terms of media reports, that does suggest that the race is neck and neck between former President Donald Trump as well as Vice President Kamala Harris, and that is something that we're going to be paying a lot of close attention to. That remains on which party dominates Congress, given that a sweep by Republicans or Democrats could contribute to drastic spending changes or even a big revamp coming in. So that is something that we're looking at in terms of the elections, and the results, of course, are going to be having a significant impact as well. In terms of the earnings season, though, you do have results from Super Microcomputer as well as Yum Brands. That is something that we're looking out for. And that largely is the kind of handover that we have when it comes to the US markets, at least. You do have that US Treasury yield drop by 10 basis points and the dollar also slipping, and that is also something that we're keeping on our radar. But bright and early this morning, it does look like a little bit of a lackluster handover coming in, at least from the US markets.
Morning, Shanti. Absolutely. Big cues to come from the presidential election, and neck-to-neck competition is happening. That is what investors are bracing for. This has to be a volatile week, followed by Federal Reserve's policy, and there are chances now. Of course, the 25 BPS, what is it being priced in? There are 98% chances of 25 BPS cut. That's what the traders are is right now anticipating. But what happened to crude? Oil prices rose nearly 3% on Monday, and this is majorly because of a decision by OPEC Plus, which they have taken to delay the month plans to increase the output now. Market braced for a crucial week. Now, that includes, of course, US presidential election, key meeting in China. Brent futures, that one gained $1.98 per barrel, or close to 2.71%. Now, the crude is $75.08. US West Texas Intermediate crude, that one added $1.98 a barrel, or nearly 2.85. Settled at $71.47. Now, of course, a lot of cues which are lined up. Yields fell to 4.3%, and generally that happens whenever there's an interest cut scenario. Now, talking about even safe haven gold, prices were steady on Monday. US elections uncertainty, that one loomed the market. Spot gold was up just very minor, 0.5%. That was almost at the same level only, 2736 per ounce. Now, before that, it had hit a record high of $2790 also last Thursday, if we remember. US gold futures, that one settled little lower, nearly 1% to $2746. But then big news on oil front has to come from OPEC Plus. Now, OPEC Plus Secretary General remains bullish on oil demand, dismissing doom and gloom forecasts. Despite a recent production cut to support the prices, OPEC expects demand to grow by 1.9 million barrel per day this year. This is higher than many market predictions. While its outlook has slightly dropped, it remained well above the International Energy Agency's forecast of 9 lakh barrel per day growth for 2024.
All right, then moving on, let's also get you some updates from that much-awaited election. In a heated final push, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are rallying in swing state Pennsylvania, each vying for momentum in a race that split nationally. Trump confidently claims a landslide return to the White House, while Harris also promises a presidency for all Americans. Both candidates are focusing on Pittsburgh tonight, attracting thousands of supporters just miles apart. Meanwhile, you do have Elon Musk facing criticism over election misinformation on his platform X, as his posts backing Trump also have garnered billions of views, raising concerns about potential influence on the vote as well. And that is something that we're looking at. Of course, this is a battle that we've been keeping an eye on, and today Americans will all head to vote for their next president, and by the end of the day, the world will likely know who's heading to take their seat at the Oval Office. In the last leg of the poll, campaigning both the Democratic as well as Republican contenders are in swing states, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Michigan, amongst others, and making that final outreach to voters. They're making that last final pitch. Harris's pitch, though, involves appealing to the African American community and Arab Americans, protecting democracy as well as reproductive rights. On the other hand, you do have Trump's pitch that is around making America great again, combating illegal immigration, fixing the economy as well as ending the wars. So that is something that you see as a stark difference coming in between both their pitches. In fact, my colleague Sumita Karir is here to break down all of the key details of the US presidential elections. Sumita, over to you.
Yes, 200 million voters will be deciding who gets to become the 47th president of the United States of America. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, the United States is the only democracy in the world where voters do not vote directly for candidates. In fact, winning the popular vote doesn't guarantee presidency. It has an indirect voting system, which is called the Electoral College, which actually decides who becomes the president of the country. Let's understand how that works. Well, there are a total of 538 electoral votes divided amongst 50 states. A candidate needs a total of 270 electoral votes or more to win. So 270 is the magic number. Now, under this electoral college system, representatives from each state are formed on the basis of the population size of each state. For example, California, which is a bigger state, has 54 electors, whereas Wyoming, which has a population of just over 5 lakhs, has 3 electors or votes. Electors are chosen on the basis of who wins the popular vote in these states. But how are these electoral votes cast? Well, when voters cast their votes, they see the names of presidential and vice presidential candidates on ballot paper. But in reality, these voters are casting their ballot for a group, that is, electors who represent their mandate. Whoever wins the state ends up winning the electoral vote. Essentially, people are voting for state electors, and what doesn't matter is the popular vote. In fact, it's happened 5 times in recent history when a candidate has won the popular vote, but he's lost the electoral college, and vice versa. For instance, in 2000, it was Al Gore who lost to George Bush. In 2016, Hillary Clinton, even though she won the popular vote, she lost to Donald Trump because of the electoral college process. In fact, in every presidency, it all boils down to a few select states, which are called battleground or swing states, which heavily lean towards one party or the other and hence end up deciding the winner, even though these states form just about 18% of the country's population. Over the years, there's been criticism to this electoral college process as well, with many saying that it should be the candidates with the most number of popular votes who should win, but that's unlikely to happen anytime soon, given that it would require a change in the country's constitution. So barely a few hours to go. Trump and Harris are locked in a neck-to-neck fight. As of now, Trump seems to be holding a slim margin over Harris, but then, viewers, it could swing either ways. Remember, it is also one of the most crucial elections in recent times, one that will decide where the country is headed over the next decade, economically, geopolitically, and culturally.
The cost of living. It is about supporting small businesses in the community. It is about bringing down the cost of housing, groceries, extending the child tax credit. These are issues that resonate in that community as well as every other community.
The president has the right to impose the tariffs on these countries that have been hurting us. They've really been hurting us. It's so ridiculous. They end up closing. Everybody loses their job. We lose sort of everything, and it's so stupid. And all we have to do is the same thing, but we have a big advantage because we have the pot of gold they want, but we won't have that pot of gold very long because the way these fools are running our country, we're going to be a busted country pretty soon.
If rounding up and deporting millions of desperate people is the answer to everything, why was the number of undocumented immigrants basically the same when Donald Trump left office as when he took office?
Border Patrol. It said we had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left.
All right, so neck-to-neck competition, but for sure, traders are bracing for a big revamp on the tax policy, and that completely depends upon the US presidential election. We did caught up with Meera Shankar and Anurag Singh even to understand their perspective on the US elections. Let's get your slice.
I think the last Trump presidency left a huge deficit when we are talking of spending. And right now, there's a range of economists who said both Kamala's plan and Trump's plan are likely to increase the deficit, but Trump's plan by an order of magnitude more than Kamala's plan. And this is about 30 to 40 economists who've come out and basically given this opinion. So if we are a little objective, I think that opinion is divided.
I think polling continues to undercapture Republican voters, and I think they're doing the same this time as well. So that's too much. So much for the polls. Looks like voters have made up their mind. To me, it looks like a decisive Trump victory. I may be wrong. However, we are investors. We take position accordingly.
All right, then neck-and-neck competition, definitely something that we're keeping an eye on. The US elections. Moving on, then Meta platforms will continue to also ban political ads after the elections. The tech giant said in a blog post on Monday it had implemented this policy to curb rampant misinformation seen during the last elections. And during the restriction period, in fact, Meta will disallow new political ads. However, previously served ads with at least one impression before the ban's implementation will continue to run with restricted editing options as well.
And as the presidential race continues to heat up, economic activity in the US seems to be cooling off as factory orders tumbled in September. This is for the fourth time in the past 5 months. However, it was in line with estimates as the advanced report on durable goods had already signaled weakness. The orders for manufactured goods, that one fell by 0.5% in September, the Commerce Department mentioned on Monday.
Alright, moving on to some earnings updates then. British oil giant BP reported its weakest quarterly earnings in nearly 4 years, posting a third quarter profit of $2.3 billion, down from $3.3 billion last quarter as well. Despite beating analyst expectations though, shares hit their lowest since 2022. The profit drop reflects a slump in crude prices as well as lower refining margins, marking BP's weakest results since the pandemic's impact on the industry in 2020.
San Francisco-based robot startup Physical Intelligence that has secured $400 million in funding, hitting a $2.4 billion valuation. Backed by Jeff Bezos, OpenAI and others, the company aims to integrate general-purpose AI into physical tasks, envisioning robots that platform everyday actions on command. With a team of experts from Tesla, Google, DeepMind and X, Physical Intelligence sees this as a step towards developing artificial general intelligence.
Alright, then those were all the global updates. To go with your morning cup of coffee. When we come back after a very short break, we'll tell you how the Asian markets are faring, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now. Now let's get you cues from Asian market. Largely mixed set of cues coming in from Asia Pacific market. If you look at, of course, the two key triggers, the US presidential election and the Fed outcome, that one, of course, are the main cues. Along with that, there's an Australian central bank which has to take a policy decision. That one is also what investors are keeping an eye on. But in the meantime, Japan, after a day's shut, it was shut on Monday, has opened with gains of more than 1%, nearly 1.2%, 1.3% what we see on Nikkei. And even their broad index topics, that one has gained 0.8%. But if we get the other markets, of course, Australia's S&P, ASX 200, that one is trading with a little bit of pressure. Less than 0.5% down. The key decision which has to come from the central bank, that will actually decide the direction further. In the meantime, Kospi, which is also 0.5% down. And let's get you even Hang Seng. Hang Seng is trading right now flat to positive. Futures were though indicated a softer start, but then Shanghai is also trading with a positive set of cues, 0.5% upcoming from Shanghai market. GIFT Nifty is again indicating a softer start. We slid yesterday to a 2-month low on Nifty. Let's see if we are in for some more consolidation on Indian markets, or maybe we will see a range-bound trade. But then mixed set of cues from Asia Pacific market as of now.
Well, absolutely. So mixed cues is what we're looking at from Asia, and as well as when you take a look at the cues coming in from the US, quite the lackluster set of cues coming in from there as well. But for now, let's also take a look at the market lineup that we have for you. It's a jam-packed lineup at that. At 9:20, we'd be in conversation with Sameer Arora, founder at Helios Capital, who'll be talking to us about the markets and more. And when you take a look at the lineup that we have, 9:40, we'd be in conversation with Rakesh Sharma, ED at Bajaj Auto, to talk about the Motown dispatches. Now, the stock went home with cuts of about 3.6%, so that's an important conversation. It was moving in tandem with the rest of the auto pack. So, to decode the growth roadmap for the pack, keep an eye on that conversation as well as the conversation that we have lined up at 9:50 with Sanjay Kulshrestha, CMD at Hudco, to talk about their earnings as well. At 10:20, then we'd also be discussing the festive cheer and what the festive season has been like with Akash Agarwal, whole-time director at P2 Retail, as well as K. Ramakrishnan, MD South Asia World Panel Division at Kantar as well. So keep an eye on all of those interesting conversations. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, let's get you some more news and updates. Then Astral, Finolex as well as Supreme Industries are going to be the ones that will be in focus, as DGTR has issued a notification of its preliminary findings from its anti-dumping investigations. Now, provisional duties indicated at $25 to $399 per ton on PVC suspension resin as well. What will be the implications largely of these, and what are the analysts then penciling in? Somit is joining in with the answer. Somit?
Well, the plastic pipe manufacturers like Astral, Finolex and Supreme Industries would remain in focus, given the fact that DGTR has come out with its preliminary findings of the anti-dumping investigation. Now, as per their investigation, they have seen that there has been lower prices offered when it comes to PVC suspension resins, which were either originating or exported from China, Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Thailand and the United States of America. Now, as per their findings, a provisional duty of anywhere between $25 to $399 per metric ton on PVC suspension resin should be implemented going forward. Now, this anti-dumping duty that DGTR is aiming to implement is aimed at providing a level playing field for the domestic manufacturers of this company, given the fact that there has been a global overcapacity and a lot of dumping has been done in the country. Now, DGTR has invited comments from all the interested parties in the next 30 days related to this provisional duties that they aim to implement going forward. Now, based on this preliminary findings, analysts are expecting that the final notification regarding this anti-dumping duty could come in the next 30 to 45 days, and if there is no objection raised by any of the parties, they expect imports to dry up going forward and local prices to improve going forward. Now, this will eventually lead to more restocking by dealers and could also lead to higher inventory gains for PVC pipe plastic pipe manufacturers like Astral, Finolex and Supreme Industries. Now, they're expecting a price hike to come in of around 6 to 8 rupees per kg, which is nearly 8 to 10% when it comes to pricing. And apart from this, going forward, they're also expecting the BIS quality control norms to also get implemented by December 24th, which could be another positive for these companies. So keep an eye out for the plastic pipe manufacturers in trade.
These stocks would be in action today. Thanks very much, Somit, for breaking that down for us. Moving on now. SEBI has allowed mutual funds to invest in overseas mutual funds or unit trusts that invests a specific portion of their assets in Indian securities. Anjali Palot is here with more details on that. Anjali, over to you.
Right, so SEBI has issued a circular regarding the Indian mutual funds investment in overseas mutual funds and unit trusts. This new circular mandates that a single pooled investment will have to be done in overseas mutual funds, barring side portfolios or segregate accounts. Independent fund management will also need to be allocated, and no advisory agreement with Indian mutual funds will be allowed. Now, Indian mutual funds in overseas schemes will have to ensure an equal share of returns for all its investors. Additionally, there is also a limit of the Indian exposure that these overseas MF and UTs can have, and this has been set at 25%. So at the time of investment, Indian mutual funds will have to ensure that the overseas mutual fund or UT does not exceed this 25% limit of exposure in Indian securities. At any time, if this limit is breached, then a 6-month observance period will be permitted to the Indian mutual funds, and during this time they will have to monitor the portfolio rebalancing being done by the overseas MF or UTs. If after 6 months the limit still stands breached, then the Indian mutual fund will have to liquidate its investment in the overseas MF or UT. Now, non-compliance to any of these norms can lead to a ban on fresh subscriptions, new schemes, or a waiving of the exit loads.
All right, thanks Anjali for that roundup coming in. So those are the latest norms when it comes to mutual funds. But after bringing in competitive pricing for its cola beverages, Reliance Consumer Products is also making moves to gain larger share in the snacks segment as well. The company in fact has increased trade margins for its chips, namkeen as well as biscuit brands to incentivize distributors as well. Anjali, tell us a little more about this. Give us a few more details about this as well.
That's right, Reliance Consumer Products is offering higher margins for its snacks categories, which includes chips, namkeens as well as biscuit brands. And these higher margins are being offered throughout the supply chain. Starting with super stockists, so Reliance is offering them up to 6.5% of margins, whereas the industry standards is just about half, ranging from about 3 to 5%. For distributors, Reliance is offering them 8% of margins as well as 2% of additional incentives, and the industry standards for distributors currently ranges at around 6 to 6.5%. Down to the retailers. Now retailers, Reliance Consumer Products is offering them up to 20% of margins, whereas the competitors usually give retailers 8 to 5% of margins. Now with this increased margins, Reliance is trying to have a greater play in the FMCG segment. For their cola brand Campa as well, they had reduced the prices, and this had led to a ripple effect of other companies also decreasing the prices for their colas. So this is another play coming from Reliance Consumer Products to improve their market share in the FMCG segment.
All right, so price war looks like starts in retail segment also. Thanks very much, Anjali, for all those details. Moving on, Nikhil Dhingra, who's the CEO, and Manoj Upadhyay, who's the founder and chairman of Acme Solar Holdings, the company which is on the IPO route. This week, it will be open for subscription. They both speak about the company's fundraise and expansion plans. In fact, let's get you that slice.
We will be using 1,800 crores to repay the debt of the subsidiaries, and it will allow us to use the cash flows generating from those subsidiaries for our growth. And 600 crores will be for GCP, which is to meet the corporate overheads and working capital of the business. So that's the broad use of primary capital we are raising of 2,400 crores. At the current top end of the issue price, the sponsors will be holding 84% of the post-issue capital.
All right, then that's the word coming in from the top bosses at Acme. Then moving on, Royal Enfield has unveiled its first ever electric motorcycle called the Flying Flea C6 in Milan, Italy. In the future, all electric motorcycles of Royal Enfield are going to be launched under the Flying Flea brand, which is focused on urban commuting. And the first bike will come in 2026 as well. In fact, ETNA's Sumit Chaturvedi took a closer look at the futuristic bike of Indian cult bike maker as well. Take a look.
So Indian cult bike maker Royal Enfield is calling it a new chapter in its history. This is the first electric bike which has been unveiled in Milan today. It's called Flying Flea C6. This is the model. It's a city plus bike, which means it is good for commuting around the city. Electric bike coming from Royal Enfield, which is known for its heavy petrol bike. It's clearly a new thing. Well, company will launch it in 2026. Thereafter, many new models, other models can also come like this. Well, Indian market, if we talk about it, currently dominated by electric two-wheelers, including scooters. But this is going to be a unique product, definitely. It's also going to be for the global markets. That's why it's being showcased and unveiled in Milan in Italy. So a lot of expectations from the Royal Enfield side, which is generally known for its cult bike. This time it's an electric city bike. It's going to be launched within 2026.
Okay, that's a prototype what Sumit was showing us, but the launch would be by 26. Thanks very much, Sumit, for those details. We stay for a short break here. When we come back, we get you all the buzzing stocks, brokerage notes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe, and a lot of action this week from the primary market. We're looking at 4 IPOs that will open for subscription, and amongst them, the biggest one is, of course, Swiggy. But along with them is Sagility India, Niva Bupa, even Acme Solar Holdings, and of course, the much-awaited Swiggy. Now, Jinay is here with a roundup of all the 4 companies and their subscription dates.
Well, definitely we have 4 IPOs lined up for this week, starting up with today's Sagility India. The IPO opens today. Well, if you look at about the company, it provides health-focused solutions and services. Now, the IPO date opens today and it will close on 7th of November. And if you look at the total issue size, it stands at 2,106 crores. Now, the complete IPO is an OFS issue, meaning all the funds raised by the company will be going to the sellers and not to the company. If we talk about the price band, that it stands at 28 to 30 rupees per share. Moving on to the second IPO, which is the biggest IPO, which is also the talk of the town, is Swiggy's IPO. Now, if you talk about the company, it again provides food delivery services, quick commerce services, and supply chain and distribution network to B2B basis. Now, the company's IPO opens on 6th of November, that is tomorrow, and it will close on 8th of November. If you talk about the total issue size, it stands at 11,327 crores. Out of this, the fresh issue will be 4,499 crores, whereas the rest of the issue will be an OFS. If we talk about the objects of the issue, then the company will be repaying its debt. It will be doing expansion of its dark stores and investment into the technology. Moving on, Acme Solar Holdings, this is another IPO which will open. If you talk about the company, it is India's one of the largest electricity provider, produces from solar and wind energy. The IPO opens on 6th of November, ends on 8th of November. If we talk about the total issue size, it stands at 2,900 crores. Now, out of this, the fresh issue is 2,395 crores and the rest of 505 crores is an OFS. The price band for this issue stands at 275 to 289 per share, and the objects, if the issue is debt repayment of its one of the subsidiaries. Moving on to the last IPO is Niva Bupa Health Insurance IPO. Now, it is a JV between the Bupa Group and Fettle Tone LLP, providing insurance services. If we talk about the IPO, it opens on 7th of November and closes on 11th of November. The total issue size is 2,200 crores, out of which the fresh issue is 800 crores, whereas the rest of 1,400 is OFS. If we talk about the price band, it stands at 70, with the upper price band being 74 rupees per share, and the objects of the issue is the general capital base augmentation and general corporate purposes. So, all in all, if you look at all the 4 of the IPOs, the total amount being raised IPO this week is about 8,534 crores.
Thanks, Jinay, for that roundup coming in. So there you go. That was a closer look at the 4 IPOs that are set to hit Dalal Street this week as well. But let's get you some more news and updates. In fact, let's get you the futures and options roundup. And Ansh is standing by with just that. Ansh?
So let's start with what happened in index future. So if you see FI position, they have added some long by around 9,000 contract, but at the same time they have added 18,600 short contract, due to which net to net basis they have added around 9,200 contract on downside. So this says that they continue to be bearish in the market. At the same time, if we talk about retail positioning, then retail have added 33,300 contract on upside, and shorts have also been added by just 8,000 contract, but net to net basis they have added around more than 25,000 contract on upside, which shows they continue to be bullish in market. So this shows that there is a continuity of battle between this FIIs and retail. Now, if we talk about Nifty, then let's get the chart on the screen. If you can see the chart, Nifty was hovering between a consolidation phase of the 24,100 to 24,500. In the previous session, it has given a decisive breakdown from that consolidation pattern, which is a very bearish sign. To gain back the positivity, we must come back above that 24,100 mark. Index future also, we are seeing that open interest has jumped by 5%, indicating short build-up, which is again a negative sign. Also on option fund, we are seeing most active call writing happening at that psychological level of 24,000, indicating resistance around this level. At the same time, we are seeing put buying also happening at 24,000, indicating option traders are expecting Nifty to stay below this level. Now, if you talk about Nifty Bank, then index has been hovering around that 100 EMA from last 22-23 sessions, indicating a strong consolidation phase with max deviation of around 2.5% only from that 100 EMA. Also, if we talk about index future, then we are seeing that open interest has gone up by around 3%, indicating short build-up, which is also a bearish sign. So same like Nifty, even Nifty Bank is getting very bearish in the market, especially into futures and options. Lastly, if we talk about some stock in focus, then Reliance Industry is the stock which is in focus because this has dragged Nifty the most on downside. Also, if you see the chart, then Reliance was also hovering within a consolidation phase from last 9 to 10 sessions, but in the previous session, it has given a decisive breakdown, touching that 9-month low level as well. So keep an eye on this stock.
All right, thanks very much, Ansh. So looks like they're trying to hedge some of the position, but at the same time, they're adding more of shorts also. FI's positioning has not changed at all, and so is retail, which is standing tall from last so many sessions now. Thanks very much, Ansh. Moving on, Gaurav is joining in with the list of brokerage notes for the day. Gaurav, morning.
Well, yes, let's begin our list today with Excite because we have seen poor set of numbers from the company, and on back of this, when we talk about brokerages, they are being a little bearish on this stock. Now Citi has maintained buy rating but cut the target price to 540 rupees. What they're saying is that Q2 EBITDA was slightly below the estimates. Management has highlighted some strong growth is going to come, but at the same time they will wait for more clarity on the core demand and at the same time any kind of clarity on the lithium ion battery and its plans. Apart from that, when we talk about Nomura, they have maintained buy rating with a target price of 589 rupees on this company because what they are expecting is that the price hikes and change in mix will actually help the company to overcome the margin pressure that we are seeing in the company right now. Other than that, let's also focus on Apollo Hospitals because Morgan Stanley has now maintained overweight rating and a target price of 7,110 rupees. The reason being that recently Apollo Hospital has said that they will be adding 500-bed hospital in Worli, and that is the reason why Morgan Stanley believes that the market share of overall rural mix will go to around 60% in the next 4 years. When we talk about ROCE, the rural mix actually gives around ROCE of around 28%, which is higher than the non-rural segment, which gives ROCE of around 23%, and that is the reason why they are being a little bullish on this company. Lastly, let's also focus on ABB because UBS has now maintained its neutral rating and a target price of 9,100 rupees. And the reason being that when we talk about results, revenue and EBITDA was below estimates, although EBITDA margin was above estimate. But what UBS has highlighted is that there was muted execution in terms of process automation, and that is the reason why we saw some miss in revenue. And at the same time, when we talk about EBITDA margin beat, they believe that this is already priced in the stock, and that is the reason they have maintained their neutral stance. So definitely watching out on all these counters on the back of the brokerage note that we have received today.
Well, absolutely. Thanks, Gaurav, for that update coming in. So those are the counters that will be in focus on account of brokerage notes. But let's also take a look at the counters that are likely to be in focus on account of news flow. And Ria standing by with just that list. Ria, which are the counters that make it to your list then?
Yes, good morning. So let's take a look at the stocks in focus today. First up, we have ABB India on the back of its Q3 CY24 numbers. Now, there was a miss on the revenue front. It has gone up around 5% on a year-on-year basis versus expectations of around 19% year-on-year. If you look at the profitability, though that has outperformed, net profit has gone up around 20% on a year-on-year basis. Even the EBITDA has gone up around 23%, and the margins have also outperformed, going up around 271 basis points over the previous year. If you look at the order inflow, that has gone up around 11% on a year-on-year basis, and a very strong order backlog as well of around 9,995 crores. We also have KEC International reporting quite a good set of numbers today. The revenue has seen a jump of around 13.7%. Even the net profit has gone up substantially around 53% on a year-on-year basis. Good growth on the EBITDA front as well, and the margins have come in at 6.3% in this quarter, which is a growth of around 128 basis points. Good growth on the order intake as well, and they've also achieved their highest ever order book plus L1 as on date of rupees 42,500 crores. Let's also talk about Gland Pharma, though, which has reported quite a weak set of numbers in this quarter. Revenue has gone up marginally around 2.5%, but on the net profit side, we've seen a decline of around 15%. Even the EBITDA has gone down 8%, and the margins have contracted 247 basis points versus the previous year. Let's also talk about IRCTC, which has reported a mixed set of numbers. We've seen good growth on the revenue front, around 7.5%, but on the EBITDA side, that has gone up only marginally 1.5%, and and the margins have seen a strong contraction of 190 basis points over last year. We also have Amara Raja Batteries reporting a mixed set of numbers in this quarter. The revenue has gone up around 10% on a year-on-year basis, but on the net profit side, there has been a marginal decline. EBITDA has also gone up around 1 to 2%, but on the margin side, we've seen a contraction of around 106 basis points. On Amara Raja, there is another announcement. Yesterday at their board meeting, the board has decided to enhance the investment limit in ARACT, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the company, from rupees 1,000 crores to 2,000 crores in order to set up gigafactories and plants. And lastly, we have NTPC and ONGC in focus, since they have joined hands to form a JV company, and this JV is going to venture into various renewable energy projects, and these projects are going to include solar, wind and energy storage projects, as well as carbon credits and green credit projects as well. And the JV company is also going to seek opportunities in order to acquire renewable energy assets, and they're also going to consider participating in the upcoming offshore wind tenders in Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. So definitely keeping an eye out on all of these stocks today.
All right, thanks very much, Ria. So looks like not a very impressive set of earning coming in, except barring KC International. Let's see how these stocks trade today. Moving on, but then of course, investors who are on a lookout for value buying, where they can find opportunities, will get you some important reactions from the market, Astros. Amid this volatility in the market, of course, the pockets of opportunity for investors. We pose this question to Ramesh Tamani, Nilesh Shah, Vijay Kedia, and even to Sunil Singhania. Here are the big themes these market gurus are betting their money on.
One theme that I've been extraordinarily bullish upon is this, what we call digital public infrastructure theme. India has become a digital country. We've almost leapfrogged a generation of bad, poor infrastructure by building a world-class digital infrastructure. So a lot of now companies are now participating in this, whether it's tax identification services, PAN services, ONDC services, many of those pieces. Then there are maybe half a dozen companies that benefit from this infrastructure play out. So I would first suggest that investors look at this not necessarily from a 6 months or 1 year or 2 year horizon, but from a 5-10 year horizon. It's a long-term story, and the market caps don't reflect the opportunity that we see in digital public infrastructure. So if you're looking at new investor, looking for new themes, I would suggest you put some money into digital public infrastructure and some pharma companies which have some intellectual property.
I clearly see that markets like China have witnessed that when you go from $3,000 to $10,000 per capita, you're clearly seeing huge amount of spend go up on the BPC side. And if you get the template right, if you have the playbook right out there, I think you could have a potential wealth creator. I mean, we saw these in the 90s where a lot of FMCG companies rode on the basic staples, what we talk as the soaps and the shampoos. It's now, I think that's now a mature category. You now got to move on to the BPC side. And that's where I clearly think there's a very big, powerful mega theme which is likely to emerge in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
I will tell you that I am bullish on Chinese shares. I think that China is the new story. I think China is the new theme. And I think this Chinese stock should do well going forward. For 15 years, they haven't done anything. You just imagine, even Hong Kong index was some 32 or 34,000 in 2008. Yes, it's still hovering around 22,000 or 20,000 or something. And in 14 years, and we are, I don't know, 8 times plus or 9 times plus, we don't know. So people have written off China. I have already put 2-3% or maybe 2 or 3%.
This whole transition towards renewable, battery storage, which is BAS, and hydrogen, and so many other, nuclear is coming back. I think it is very clear that the demand for fossil fuel will not be great, and in fact it might start to peter off, and which would mean that oil structurally seems to be on a downward slope. And I think nothing can be better for India, and I would say that would be the mega theme for India as an economy.
All right, then that's the word coming in from the experts in terms of the big themes that they're keeping on their radar as well. But let's get you some more news and updates. Then Elon Musk runs social media platform X has started to launch an update that will allow people, now that you've blocked, to continue to see your posts and your followers list as well. The tech billionaire had earlier claimed that stopping people from seeing public posts makes no sense. However, blocked users still cannot follow the person who has blocked them, engage with their posts, or send direct messages to them as well. So that's the update coming in there. Moving on then, Israel has struck the intelligence headquarters of Hezbollah's Syrian branch in a strike on Damascus, an attack in which 2 people have been killed. Remember, Israel has intensified its strikes on targets in Syria since launching its war against Hezbollah in neighboring Lebanon more than a month ago. So that's the update coming in from Israel as well. But moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday evening strongly condemned the deliberate attack on a Hindu temple in Canada, referring to a shocking incident last week when men breached the gates of a temple in Brampton while the Indian High Commission held a consular camp as well. And the PM also criticized cowardly attempts to intimidate Indian diplomats in the country as well.
And of course, and as millions in the United States cast their ballots to elect their next president, a quite nondescript village in Tamil Nadu is praying for Kamala Harris' victory. Prayers have been offered at Harris' ancestral village, Tulasantrupa Ram. Moving on, one of the finest batters of the modern generation, Virat Kohli, celebrates his 36th birthday today. For his incredible batting, innumerable records and several match-winning knocks, Kohli is considered one of the greatest batters to don the Indian jersey. With 50 ODI centuries to his name, Kohli holds the record for scoring the most number of tons in the 50-over format.
Alright then, so that's a little something for the cricket fans there, King Kohli's birthday. But with that, we're completely out of time on this edition of Market Cafe on ET Now. From me, Shriyanti Singh, Priyanka Uppal, as well as the entire team that put this show together. Thank you so much for tuning in. But you don't go anywhere because the market takes all of the action forward.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.